So ops, pretty much the front ops / badge check is pretty much just right here. That way, if anyone needs to find con ops, we're here, and then we have a back office upstairs in Riverside A. The room is called storage so that it's a secret, so nobody knows. So so I'm Beth Nydia. I'm an inflatable dragon in the fandom, U.S. Army veteran, and fully at home in my found family. Okay, so based on this evidence here, I am a lavender and gray dragon. Most of the time I am also squeaky. I'm an inflatable dragon, but for about the first half of my time in the fandom, I was just a gray and purple-ish dragon, so yes. We all have many reasons why, something piques our interest. I mentioned earlier I was in the U.S. Army. I participated in the invasion of Iraq. Their army took off their uniforms, put on civilian clothes, hid amongst civilians, and then gently tossed grenades into our convoys or began shooting at us with several layers of human shields. It's stuff that you'll live with for the rest of your life. I found a way to feel safe in that if I was sleeping on or under something larger than myself, that feeling of safety, kind of like, I don't want to say like a mother hen on top of a chick, but actually, yeah, kind of like a mother hen on top of a chick. I've been mostly able to overcome PTSD and a lot of other things. I still have it, but I'm able to live healthy now.
Tell me a little bit about the convention. What are we doing here?
So, Get Out the Float is a bit of a blend between we used to always be a furry event and not an actual convention. This year we are a furry event that happens to be using a convention center. We have always been fairly focused on raising money for charity and also focused on inflatables and such. We are one of the only multi-day events where instead of having a few hours of an inflatables panel, people can bring their toys here and they'll be set up for several days, which leaves folks free to go and enjoy the event and everyone else to see what's here.
Well, that worked out quite nicely then. Crab. No, lobster.
You say crab? Another tiger. Another tiger. Another tiger. Another one. And one last. All of my tigers fit in one bit. So this one took me forever to get my hands on, and it's probably my favorite toy that I own. Just because of the history behind it. And it's such a unique toy that you just cannot get. There will never be another one of these made. Like the company just doesn't exist. So yeah, this is my crown jewel.
Let's see it.
I'm Quietfire. I am a facilitator in the community for experiences with inflatables. I've been part of the fandom since actively maybe 2005, 2006. I discovered the community with the inflatables. I fell in love with it. In recent years, I've kind of started hosting the inflatables panels for BLFC, Further Confusion, Anthro Northwest. We run this panel so that people can come in and I guess just create a positive experience for people who don't know what it's about. And there he is. One tiger. One tiger.
Our main room, and the only room in which we can fit bouncy castles without breaking the lights or overhead projectors or other ceiling mounted equipment, is the Pacific room.
There's kind of a sense of wonder there. For some people it's fursuits, for some people it's art, stuffed animals. There is a connection there, at least for me, that goes back to childhood. There's a comfort there. That Saturday morning commercial comes on, you see the latest toy, you've got to have it. It's about that moment. There's that same feeling, but as an adult.
So what's on the agenda for today here at Get Out the Float?
So we have bouncy castles, and I believe we have fursuit games on the bouncy castles or around the table. We'll be taking care of those.
Oh, okay.
10 to 15 years ago, there was just a small number of us. We all knew each other. At one point, I bought a purple dragon that I no longer own, but there were only 6 of them made, and I knew all of the other owners around the world. And we began ordering custom toys from a company on the East Coast and stuff like that, and that's where things got started.
As we started going to conventions, people would bring toys, private parties that started with a small room, and then more people started coming and more people started coming. So we got the bigger room and the bigger suite, and more toys kept showing up as we had more toys created. I guess that's where it all started.
There's something about inflatables for me that really clicks. I feel happier around them, at least. Yeah.
I have thought about it for years and years, and I cannot quite put my finger on what is interesting about it. I wish I understood it myself, but I don't.
It is definitely kind of an identity to some extent. Just my expression, I guess, is to be cute and squeaky.
I have a picture of myself that my mom took when I was like 2, curled up in a snow tube, sleeping.
I spent a few years growing up in Hawaii, being on top of an inflatable in the pool and falling off a million times. Unconstrained happiness, I think is the best way to put it.
Rainy days at school and everyone has those vinyl raincoats on, and those were always really fun days. So there's a sensory memory there. Because I'm a very tactile person, I'm very sensory driven.
I like when they're big, I like when they're soft, I like the feel of the vinyl, I like the way it looks, the curves, the whole thing.
You can sort of sink into it. It's sort of, it's more like supportive.
It's like hugging you back. I'd say that's one thing that I like about them.
They do tend to be very cartoony, that's right.
They're such cute critters. How can you not love them?
The community's inflating. So the full toy community.
What are they to you? Are they a hobby, a community, identity?
Definitely a community. Much more than a hobby. I have other things that are hobbies. This is an identity. Yeah.
Is there any specific terminology to the inflatable community?
Squeak.
Squeak, okay.
Squeak. Not really. As far as toys go, it's just like any other part of the fandom. You have the people who are just kind of involved on the surface. They're a little curious about it and go, hey, what's this about? And then you have the completely other end of the spectrum where your character is a pool toy and you've got the huge collection. I'm kind of somewhere down that end of the spectrum.
That's you behind you.
Yep, that's me, and that's me.
Oh, wow. There's a lot of you. There's 3 of you. Oh, so sweet.
He really does look like me, though.
It really does.
Yeah.
I mean, did you have the suit before that dragon? Or did you design that dragon basically?
Ooh, no, I designed this dragon beforehand. It just happens that there is just an inflatable that I really like that happens to just look like me. So, yeah.
Some of the misconceptions people have about pool toys, that it is nothing more than a fetish. It would be foolhardy to say that there is not a part of the community for where it is a fetish. Like we talked about earlier, it's a tactile thing, and that plays into it.
For some people, it is definitely kink gear. So like a latex suit or pup gear, it's definitely that sort of thing for some people. There's a lot of people that buy them just because they think they're cute and they think they're neat, which blows my mind that they'd spend that much money on a piece of plastic that sits in their living room and just looks cute. But yeah, you know, how do some people exist without having a kink? Like, wow, they must be boring, you know?
I guess if I wanted people to understand anything, that it's about self-expression. And the longer I'm in it, the more I discover.
We raise money for the Sunset Empire Parks and Recreation Foundation. They help pay for swimming lessons and aquatic activities for local members of the community who cannot otherwise afford it. When folks say, oh, Bath, this is a resort town, everybody's got a bunch of money here. It's like there are, in Western Oregon and in many other such places, you have the part of the town that is the resort town, and then you have the part of the town where everybody who works locally lives. And a lot of time, affordability becomes a major issue very quickly. The money we raise will pay for 50 to 75% of kids' swimming lessons or other activities for adults, such as aquatic fitness and things like that.
If you can turn your hobby into giving back in some form or fashion, all of the reward is in itself.
1, 2, 3. Next one.
This year, before opening ceremonies, we were up to $687 so far this weekend. And we hadn't even started yet.
A lot of America just sort of considers anything that's plastic to be basically trash, like as soon as you've purchased it. We have taken something that is generally commercially available and regarded as junk, and made it furry.
People would say it's just another piece of plastic. For us, it's like, it's another person, it's a soul. It's a soul that I can't see, but has taken like kind of like this physical form that, you know, I like love. And it's something that I don't want to like kind of like hurt, you know. It kind of feels like a family. And it's like my own, like, you know, like kind of like my brothers and sisters. Like that's how I picture it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Aren't all the major manufacturers, with the exception of IWI, furry?
I believe so, yeah.
Furries are basically driving the custom inflatable market.
Yeah. Furries drive the inflatable market?
Yeah.
Well, 100%.
About 2009 or so, maybe 2010, was when Puffy Paws got started. And then Phenod Toy got started a few years later. He's usually out here at Get Out the Float, so we're, but anyway, sorry Phenod, not sorry.
to me, it's like this art medium where I have this ability to create and just disrupt the norm. Certainly is much better than, you know, my previous life working in a cubicle. I was just sort of perusing eBay and I saw a giant draft horse for sale on eBay. And I'm like, whoa, what is this, you know? And it was, of course, like $1,300 for the draft horse. And it was like one of 10 made. Obviously, there's no way I could possibly afford it on a college student budget. But I talked with the manufacturer. It turned out to be Puffy Paws. And they said, oh yeah, well, we do custom work and all that. And it just sort of fell into me designing a custom bunny, which I then paid for through like every last red cent of an internship I did for about a year. So fortunately that worked out. And then after that, it was just kind of hooked. This was my thing.
Now there's probably maybe about a dozen inflatable makers. It's a lot like where the furry community was overall, like back in the early 90s, where you may have had a dozen or a couple dozen of fursuit makers, and that was it.
Let me start out with this. You have less expensive, what are known as pinched seam toys, which would be like an Intex whale or like a pool toy from like Toys R Us. They're not super durable. They tend to be cheaper to make and cheaper to sell. What Puffy Paws does and what Fanad does and what I do are much heavier duty. We use much thicker vinyl. We have a lap seam process, which you can kind of see where it's smooth. There's no sharp ridge. Much more labor intensive to build, and they end up being a lot more expensive. You know, I think Fanad's dogs were $250 to $300. I think the Puffy Paws Sea Dragon was in the $400 range, $395, I think. $600. Okay, that was a big toy. So that's what the bigger toys cost. You know, you can't buy one from Puffy Paws; they're gone. So the only way to get one is to fight for one on eBay, and yeah, it's $1,000, $1,200 easy.
When you approach a creator or a maker of inflatables, you can do a private run, a one-off, or you can do a public run. I would probably start with a one-off, which would be for me and me only, because it is my persona. It's my personality. I don't want just anyone to have that.
There is disagreement in the community on whether the characters of other people should be respected or not. And so I'm in that point of my life where there are Chinese knockoffs of myself, but no actual proper toy made. And unfortunately, the Chinese knockoffs are sold by a company that specializes in sex toys. And it is incredibly insulting. And that has been something that's existed for years. The company has, you know, wants lots of compensation in order to not make toys. So I just like, no, that's not how that works. But they're in China, and I can't take them to court. I mean, I would say that'd be on par with somebody basically copying your fursuit and then selling the $300 versions of your fursuit with your name and everything. And so, although I think it's just like Sexy Gray Dragon or something like that, they didn't put my actual name on it.
How many toys have you made?
I'll bet I've made 15 or 20 different toys. I've done bears, I've done dragons, I've done lots of cats.
You have to have deer, you know. There's plenty of horses, but like there's not so many deer.
You would start with a sketch, a 2D sketch. Either you could find a 3D artist that could help you, or the manufacturer would have one. They would charge you for that, and then they would model it.
Oftentimes, you know, what can exist physically is not the same as what can exist on paper. A lot of my job when I was starting out was really just trying to force the two to meet.
With fursuit making, you've got to see what fur is available in what colors. In inflatable manufacturing, everything is done in Pantones.
Avoid negative curves like the
underside of the chin is a negative curve. Where legs attach, you want to have as few forces pulling them out as possible.
My kind of goal from the beginning was try and build them so they don't break.
How much weight can one of these take?
So officially 300 pounds, but we've had something like 600 plus.
There are a multitude of reasons why anyone might have an interest in inflatables. Now, in Iraq, there's a lot of hot things. There's a lot of hard things, sharp things, and sand. Oh, I hate sand. It gets everywhere. Okay, no, stop with my, with that. But if you are waking from a nightmare or waking from a flashback or anything else and you are back in a combat zone, there is nothing soft and squishy. Being in proximity to inflatables would create a tactile disconnect in your brain and your flashback would collapse.
Great. This interview is starting in my bedroom. What could go wrong? Everything. Everything.
Whoa! Oh, that's a big dragon. So does Bath use a bed?
No!
She has wings, but they go across the ground, so just like, yeah.
Okay, again, the scale. Mood. Oh my god, oh my god, I'm like holding it with my camera.
That's what stabilizer is for.
I sleep a lot more comfortably if I am underneath something or next to something that is bigger than myself. The critter that's guarding me from my own demons or what have you is something bigger than me. It's a very different kind of dynamic, even though you know, this is also an animal-shaped bag of air. But to my subconscious, it's just wonderful. I don't get flashbacks anymore, nothing like I used to. They got trained out of my brain. The inflatables help me keep grounded to my childhood, just as the furry community keeps me socially grounded.
Pool Toy Party is the complete opposite energy of a panel, where instead of people like bouncing around and going completely berserk, we're playing like lo-fi music, and there's like balloons with lights everywhere, and the ceiling sort of refracts. It looks like it's an actual pool. It's just a very chill, like calm, relaxing space. Sort of like an anti-rave, I guess. It's interesting what happens emotionally when you give folks that space to just decompress. At Anthem Northwest, we had full force bass coming from AV and the dance that was going on. It was actually pretty awesome. There was a group of fursuiters just sort of laying in the bounce house, and they weren't really bouncing or anything. And I was like, well, I don't know, maybe I need to go check on these guys. And instead of just telling him to get out, I said, hey guys, how's it going? And they explained to me that his friend was actually completely deaf. And the only way they could really feel the music was because laying on that giant bounce house, they could feel the vibrations from the music through the toy. That got me started introducing more heavy bass and music to my events so that people can experience sound in a way they had never thought.
So that way we can keep rotating things in and out.
His DJ friend.
It's great when you have fursuiters and the fursuiters come along.
We learned that like there is fursuit etiquette, there is also inflatable etiquette, where you don't necessarily want somebody jumping on this big dragon because bad stuff can tend to happen.
I've had accidents. This tiger here has lost a limb. I took a chance and brought it into a pool, and someone jumped on it, and it was that moment in the slow motion where I'm like, no, and the leg was off. Thankfully, that person stepped up and said, I'll pay for the repairs. And there are people in our community that specialize in repair and reinforcement for when these things happen or to prevent them from happening.
I don't bring toys to panels myself anymore for those sort of reasons. These things can cost as much as a fursuit and can be a lot more delicate and harder to replace. You can't just ring up a factory in China and say, make me one. They're gonna say, well, you gotta make 100. And it's a big thing.
We come to FC and we've got a huge space and there's a lot of people. We have a high rate of foot traffic. It's why we have banners with rules.
It can be very stressful to leave something that might cost as much as a fursuit just out for other people to interact with without supervision. I was going to say without adult supervision, and I was like, I need an adult, and I was like, oh, I'm off the rails. Hooray!
Got it.
Oh, it's not there.
I think it's a donut cat. Because it got used.
I was going to conventions. I had just gotten back from PawCon. Got up, drove to work, saw what I thought was just sort of a dark cloud, on the horizon when we turned. Maybe, 15 minutes after I got to work, there started getting like some notifications from people asking about fires. I worked in a call center for the college. Got in the car and we took off to try and head back to the house. By the time we left, they had actually called evacuations for the west side of Paradise. We tried to go up, and there was no way to get up. You could see fire in the distance, just all around. It was actually a bit of a hellscape almost, like you would see in a movie.
Wildfire tore through California mountain communities north of Sacramento. Within a couple of hours, it devoured the
At least
town
29
of
people there killed and nearly 7,000 structures destroyed.
Everything's burned. Oh my God, I mean everything.
it hadn't occurred to me until then that it was actually just, you know, taking everything.
So this is it. This is the house. That's the fridge. That was dinner. Wonder what else is in here.
I was still evacuated, actually, when MFF happened that year. We actually took pretty much everything I owned, plus some clothing from Goodwill, and went to MFF because it already had the plane tickets, right? And staying in California wasn't gonna like do anything. So might as well stay in a hotel for a bit, I guess. My biological family didn't really. Wasn't particularly supportive, and actually was pretty toxic. Sometime in January, some friends, part of the pool toy group that Beth Nettie runs, like Get Out the Float, actually started a GoFundMe. As Squeak Co. Auctioned off a bunch of toys and donated it. I started getting just donations from like all over the world. Just the sheer amount of support that I received from the pool toy community and the furry community, I was just over. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can I give you a hug?
Sorry.
Everyone got it.
This is actually pretty hard.
No,
My personal fulfillment is creating these spaces and these things that give other people joy.
Guys, look, I'm at Mario Party.
I need a laugh though.
Just like anything else in the fandom, it's a way of expressing yourself. It's a way of connecting yourself to something more, and I haven't found any place else like this in life.
It is absolutely a safe space. It is absolutely something that needs to be protected, 100%.
I couldn't imagine myself without it, honestly.
If anyone wonders why I put so much into the furry community, it's because I owe the community my life. So.
We've learned so much, connecting with a community that embraces joy in the most buoyant of ways. Crafting these documentaries demands hundreds of hours in planning, filming, editing, and traversing the globe. My goal is to tell stories that explore our identities beyond the superficial. Your support breathes life into stories like these, enabling us to dive deeper into the fascinating realms throughout our diverse world. If these stories inspire you, please consider supporting Ashes to Ashes by exploring our exclusive merch or joining our Patreon community, where you'll gain access to behind-the-scenes clips and special rewards. Together, we'll continue to inflate stories, flow through cultures, and keep the spirit and curiosity forever airborne. We are Ashes to Ashes, and this story was brought to life by you and for you. Wow, that's camera reception. This is weird.
Yeah.
And in my case, I am where I am today because I've had more than 7 years of cognitive behavioral therapy. I thought about abbreviating that, and then I'm like, no. So.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Editor, use that if you want to.